Hi, this is Donna Kennedy-Glans, and I want to spend a little time today just to explain to you what we're doing with Viewpoints Alberta, how we're reaching out to individual citizens Alberta to amplify their voice, to make sure that people across the whole province can understand what individuals are saying about our energy future. So how do we do that? This little individual sitting over here, maybe in Brooks, Alberta, or Fort McMurray, or Calgary, or Edmonton, is in private space, and we're going to say to that person, hey, we want to talk to you about your viewpoint on Alberta's energy future, and we want to actually make sure that your viewpoint influences decision makers over here in what political scientists call empowered space. We talk to a lot of political scientists about what we're doing, but they describe it this way: private space, empowered space, where people like MPs and MLAs make decisions. And then there is in here another thing called public space, kind of like the Agra, which we used to have in places like Greece. It was the place where people could come from the private community, come into public space and say, hey, this is a really important thing. I think decision makers and the rest of you should all pay attention to this. So what we're doing is trying to move people, individuals, into this public space, build their capacity to be able to speak, and then to be able to influence these decision makers over here. So how do they do that? Well, what are we paying attention to? We're paying attention to accountability. How are decision makers accountable to people, Albertans, in this public space? Well, obviously elections, but that only happens once every 4 years. So we want something more often than elections. So we were asking for people to say, hey, are you listening to me over here when you make decisions about our energy future? We want to know how you're doing that. And also, we focus on how that information is transmitted. How do ideas not just go, top down or bottom up, but how is there a dialogue in both directions and a real dialogue? So we've got expert panels looking now at energy questions here in Alberta, very significant energy questions, and that's an attempt to have that two-way discussion, a dialogue, not just a one-way communication of information. And then we ask questions about, are they going to share decision-making in this space? And we've got municipal elected officials too in that space. So those are things we're focusing on right now, and we're trying to influence and trying to build capacity. And the other groups that are out there in this space that we need to pay attention to all the time: private sector corporations, and we try to influence those. Not-for-profit groups, lots of them, building capacity, and some of them care about capacity in democracies. So we're making sure that we're trying to plug in here as well and make some impacts. So I'll just use a red pen and kind of show you where we're trying to make some impact. So right here in this space here, we're trying to build strength between individuals and this public space, trying to build strength here in terms of accountability, transmission of ideas, two-way transmission of ideas. Also looking here at making sure that corporations, these people are employees of corporations. So how do I, as an employee of a corporation, maybe with the same or a different view than my employer, make my views known about energy? Not-for-profits, building capacity, another area. And yet another area of influence for us is media. And we've had a lot of discussions with media about what we're doing and making sure that the media is aware of what individuals are saying. So that's what we're doing. We're open to any questions that you might have or better ideas on how to make sure we have an impact, because we want to make sure that all of these really wise people over here have the capacity to be in public space, have the capacity to influence decision makers on an ongoing basis, also are open and accessible to media, build capacity in not-for-profits, and can influence the private sector in all ways, including companies. Thank you.